Hi friends, welcome back to React.js 0 to Hero series. This series is for beginners who wants to learn React.js from scratch. In the last video, I have explained about JSX. In this video, I am going to explain about components. React applications are built from isolated pieces of UI called components. A component is a piece of the user interface that has its own logic and appearance. The main advantage of the component is reusability. There are mainly two components in React: functional component, also known as stateless component, and class component, also known as stateful component. Functional components are simple JavaScript functions that return some JSX. They are also called stateless components because they simply accept data and show them in UI. There is no render method used in functional components. Functional components can be typically defined using arrow functions, but it can also be created with the regular function keyword. Component lifecycle methods do not exist in functional component because a functional component is just a plain JavaScript function. Even in our previous videos, I have used functional components only. Class components are regular ES6 classes that extends component class from React library. They are also known as stateful components because they implement logic and state. It must have a render method that returns JSX. There are 4 component lifecycle phases available in class components. They are mounting, updating, unmounting, and error handling. And in each phase, we have different component lifecycle methods like component did mount, component did update, component will unmount, etc. Earlier, React developers preferred to use class components to create stateful components and functional components to create stateless components. Before React 16.8, class components were the only way to track state and lifecycle on a React component. But in React version 16.8, React hooks got introduced. After the introduction of hooks, most of the developers prefer to use functional components for everything. So nowadays, class components are dying slowly. In future, those may get deprecated. But I also want to say there is no official announcement about that. But still, you need to have an understanding on class components because some of the legacy applications are still having class components. So let me explain how we can create a class component. First, let me create a JavaScript file. Inside that, I need to have a class that should extend react.component. When creating a React component, the component's name must start with an uppercase letter. And we need to import the React library. And the component also requires a render method. This method returns JSX. Finally, let me export this component so that I can use it in other components. Now let me go to the index.js and use the class component there. So we can see our class component is rendering in the UI. This is how we can create a class component. The way we call the events, maintain the state and props, lifecycle methods, and other concepts differ between functional and class components. If I explain both, it may confuse you. It takes a lot of time to explain the same concept in both the components. Also, as most of the React developers are moving towards functional components, I am going to mostly use only functional components in the upcoming videos and use class components wherever needed. And I have told the main advantage of the component in React is its reusability. Let me explain that. First, let's do some cleanup. In index.js, we have the app function. Let's move this app function or app component to a separate file. For that, let me create an app.js file. And let me move this function there. And let me export this app component. I need to move this function also to app component because we are using this there only. In index.js, let me import the app component. Now our app is still working, but our index.js is clean. Okay, let me create a new functional component called student. This time I'm going to use arrow function instead of normal function. And let me return some JSX inside. And I'm going to show this component inside our app component. So we can see our student component is showing in the UI. Assume you want to use the same component in different places. We can simply use this component. Even here, if I want to show it 2 more times, I can simply reuse like this. Now we can see 3 students are showing. This is what I was telling about reusability. Okay, here we are hard coding some values, but it will be nice if you are able to pass these values dynamically. That is what I am going to explain in the next video. And let me explain a task and you can try that. You can create an application like this, in which you need to create a header component, a top nav component, a main component, and a footer component. You can use inline styles to style your components. And you can use all your components inside app component, so that it should appear similar to this. Try it on your own. In case you need to see the solution, you can get it from this GitHub repo. The link is also in the description. That's all for today. Please like this video, subscribe my channel and support me. Thank you. Bye.